So there we go live. Hi all, I welcome you all to weekly dev meeting of Meshery. So this is a weekly meeting that happens every Wednesday. And so today too, we have a couple of agenda items that would be talking about. Meshery is CNCF ninth fastest growing project, and documentation link I'll be dropping in chat so that you all can get familiar with Meshery and what it does. And yeah, basically that. So before we get started with talking about agenda items, we will be following our tradition, and that is, if you are joining this call for the very first time, you can go ahead by introducing yourself. So I'll be taking a look if we have any newcomer on the call. So Rafael, is it the first time that you're joining a dev call? If yes, do you mind giving your intro to the community members?
No, this is not my first time of joining.
Hey, thanks for confirming, and yep, thank you for joining the call. Anyway, so yeah, looks like we don't have any newcomer on the call. Yep. But I'll once again go and drop this meeting minutes in chat so that, anyone who just joined have access to it. So you are all encouraged to write your name in the attendees and, write any agenda item that you have. That could be open issue, PR, or, any suggestions or proposal into these topics. Let's get started with topics. And so first item is from Ankita on UI changes. So Ankita, are you all set to go ahead with your update?
Yes. I believe my screen should be visible now. So I was working on the settings page that we happen to have here. It's the last of the pages that I was migrating. So the adapter, the metrics, the registry reset, and all the relevant components interrelated to settings have been updated. The black and white theming that we see on tabs, this is something that I was requested to change under Systent and not here. So I'll have a PR going up inside Systent, which will ensure that all these tabs, they have a standardized gray tone rather than having a black and white shade. So that's one thing that is here. Something that I would need feedback on would be these set of Meshery adapters that are visible here. When I'm running it locally, I can't see them. So I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong, if I've missed something during the migration, or on the local host, we can't see these. If someone could help me out with this, it would be great.
Yeah, I think you need to have these installed, and it's I think easier to do that with the Docker installation. As far as I remember, like to get those adapters. I think they are packaged with the Docker installation, so we might test with those. I think there might be some other documentation or something in the forum.
Okay.
And clearly remember.
Because yes, because the same adapter like this adapter page, even this adapter URL doesn't show up, but this one does. So I was afraid if it's
Yeah.
like some data has to come from somewhere. But I'll check, as you mentioned.
Yeah, like if you didn't change any logic, then it should probably
Nope.
work because like it comes should that adapter should be available for these.
The rest of these columns, their data, it's not visible here. So I'm assuming that this shouldn't be an issue here. These registry models, they have also been updated. And yes, this is how the page currently looks like.
Yeah, like
This is
there's like one separate kind of background between the app bar and the content and the actual page background. See?
this one, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, inside the new one.
yes, this black and white thing, as I mentioned, I made a change earlier as well, because we have these tabs on a couple of other pages, but Sudhanshu mentioned that I should move it directly inside Systent and update the Systent tabs to have a standardized color. So I'll be pushing that PR, and all of these would look similar. Post that. Yes. With this, all of these pages that required an MUI v5 update will be done. I have 3 more PRs from the past that are that have some review requests. I'll be finishing those up over the weekend, like over this week, course of the week. and then we'll be done with all of these components and migrations.
Yeah, Ankita,
That's
regarding the adapter URL, so it is seeded from the make file. So if you check the make file for adapter underscore URL as a keyword, you'll find it inside the other builds. So you can try using one of those build types rather than using make server. So you'll be able to see those URLs.
perfect. Thank you so much. I'll test that out. That's all that I had for the day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ankita. So
Hey guys, hey,
moving.
on this topic, one of the things that that we've done in the past and that we were talking about last time that we met of trying to get back into the rhythm of doing is a bit of a few standing agenda items in which we are taking a look at where we're at. Like, it's easy for me anyway, it's easy to allow my focus and some of my influence as a maintainer to allow us to just sort of slip into the day-to-day of the fixing bugs and creating new features and not giving proper attention to or context to where we are now and where we're headed. Some standing agenda items I think will help all of us understand where we are in our journey, in the project journey. One of those agenda items, the reason I'm interjecting rather, just after Ankita is because one of those items, it's been many releases now, a couple of years now that we've been trying to get to a newer version of Material UI, MUI. And I think we're not very far off. Yeah, although even though we just got an update on a specific component, that looks miscolored to me. The tab menus look pretty dark, but I'm not left with a sense of where we are. I think we're close to being done on that initiative, but in terms of like an ongoing update from each component, the UI being a significant component, there's different answers to like sort of where is the UI at in its journey, and a big portion of his journey, at least at the moment, is this migration. So there's a spreadsheet that I'm wondering if we might be able to bring up.
Sure, I can bring that spreadsheet up in a bit. Just a minute.
Okay.
Figure
In the
that out.
meantime, yeah, thank you. In the meantime, Matthew is with us and he might be in a position to take a look at like the Meshery CTL command tracker, that spreadsheet. Look, turns out we're going to be looking at a lot of spreadsheets. Like to look at that spreadsheet, there might not be, and if Matthew doesn't have a surprised look on his face, then I would be surprised. So he's being surprised by the request to potentially share this spreadsheet. So Matthew, interrupt me. I'm just going to bring this up for a moment and sort of refamiliarize some of us with it and say that, this particular sheet categorizes all of the Meshery CTL commands and their subcommands, if I'm using the right Cobra nomenclature. And more than that, it qualifies or it identifies how many of these things have been implemented, because some are just planned. There's some down below that are under the experimental area, hot pink, experimental, clearly. And then the status of whether or not they've been tested. And so I think at one point, sometimes we would list individual contributor names. Maybe not here, but just on who was working on, creating a particular test. I think our problem at the moment, one of our open challenges in the project is last time we spoke on this, it was said that there are some Meshery CTL commands that are being invoked each time that someone opens a pull request. But it's just a handful of them that are helping deploy a Meshery system. And I think there are some actions that are maybe running a performance test. But there's not, to my knowledge, sort of a consistent and dedicated workflow, a consistent framework and a dedicated workflow to running through integration tests specifically with this component. And I think that we could do it. You know, I mean, I think that that's a reasonable thing that we could get traction on. One of the adapters, the Linkerd adapter, one of the prior maintainers, Michael, had used BATS, BATS, Bash Automated Testing System, I think is it's many decades old or created many decades ago. And it's just like a helpful test harness or test framework around Bash, just around the fact you'd run a script, you would assert something to be true, and then you'd validate that that is true. And maybe that's helpful to use here. Maybe it's not. That's the end of my spiel. Does anybody have thoughts on this, you know, area?
This morning, I have spoke with Jensen about an issue he opened for Meshery CTL design apply, and he talked to me about Kudu framework, the Kubernetes operator, and there's a testing part there. I think that I don't really know how we can do that, but I think that the better thing is to see, for example, when we want to start those tests, I think that what are the steps that we need? For example, we need to have a Meshery server up and running. Then we can run. I think it's Meshery hot or config. I don't remember, but we should perhaps start it by listed what are the baseline to be able to run the other test. I think that a lot of tests can run only if we are authenticated. So perhaps we can start with that and then added the best, all the subcommand one by one and drill down. There was some ticket open to start make test.
Okay.
I saw that there were some integration on it, but it's by subcommand, but it's not all. Perhaps we can try something around that as well.
Nice. Yeah, to further that then, and by the way, we are, you know, all 20 of us or however many of us are here are, we're spending our time looking at this. So all of us and some of us that aren't on the call, we should do this. We should make sure that this happens. It's a very tractable thing. And it's precisely what Matthew just said about here's a related spreadsheet. It's called Meshery Test Plan, very aptly named. It's not Meshery Test Strategy, so it's not necessarily talking about. There's a test strategy, a document that talks about how we would approach testing and what frameworks and what type of tests there are. And this particular spreadsheet, though, is the test plan, so it's quite tactical in nature. It's specific, saying, here's an action to perform. If I could zoom in. So here's a command to run. In this case, it's not even directly a Meshery CTL command. It's a curl command that gets, and so it makes sense. It's one of the ones you might start with, or you might start with a different. And to then say, here, what's the action? What's the assertion? What's the expected outcome? How can you ideally programmatically verify that, yes, Meshery server is running? And that, yeah, in part, that's why you want to use, because yes, Meshery server is running is something that like you might reuse and reuse and reuse across a variety of these, that something like bats, look, I'm only mentioning bats because I just don't, off the top of my head, have something else that I'm aware of. Bats is a framework similar or in the same way that Kudo is a framework. They're both frameworks for testing. Kudo we've used it in our project in the past. We've used it to do conformance testing. Meshery was the the official conformance tester of Service Mesh Interface. That was a project at SMI. I won't digress into what that is, but we used Kudo for that. Kudo is inappropriate for any tests performed outside of Kubernetes. This is just, you told Kubernetes to do, you declared that you wanted Kubernetes to be in a certain state. Is it in a certain state? Great, Kudo helps with that. And it's a nice Kubernetes operator that lets you specify, declare what you want, and then declare assertions and verify them. Great, good. It has a place. It has had a place in our use, and it can continue to, but it is only applicable in context of things that transpire within the bounds of Kubernetes, whereas these don't. This is exactly what Matthew just said, like, oh, hey, a list of things we want to test. And as we write down the specific action, we would write down like this specific assertion for verifying what happened. We would categorize these things and we would say, okay, and at some point we would say, hey, we've got full coverage, or what's the status of those things? At some point we might even get outside of spreadsheets or stay within them. They're great for these types of reports and understanding where we are. This test plan conjoins this command tracker. So this is a sort of a design and planning spreadsheet largely. It also marries up with some status in terms of tests and whether or not on particular platforms things are kosher. Yeah, so there's a lot of pre-work that has been done, foundation that has been done and laid for us to go off and do these. Something that, on a related note, so this is Meshery CTL, and one component that can report status in here, tracking it manually sort of stinks after a while. Jarens is going to speak to us later about some of the tests that are being performed for the local provider, for Meshery server, another component. And we're hopefully going to hear from a few of you on the call about how tests, like tests on adapters and tests of the local provider, are programmatically pushed to, instead of back to a spreadsheet, they're pushed to our docs and become an easy reference for understanding the status of the project. So there's the compatibility matrix. This is largely adapter centric. It breaks it down into very specific tests that are run and their status. And we don't have to get really, really fancy in all this with that. I'm just saying, hey, look, the reason I interrupted is because let's figure out where we are and where we're going, and let's force ourselves to spend time on these items. And this gives context and guidance for all of us. So there's the Meshery CTL command tracker. There's the Meshery CTL, or there's a test plan. It's not specific to Meshery CTL per se, many of the tests that we saw, like the very first one, oh yeah, it was somewhat related to Meshery CTL here, but not all of them need to be. It's like, what component is under test? Well, Meshery CTL, good. We got a real focus on that. And then, we get down to like the UI. Can you, like Ankita, you're asking if you can connect an adapter from the UI. Well, here's that test. And, so this is intended to be a master test plan and kind of help us understand where we are. It's nice to see this because there have been some updates here. So Jaren's and Ankita and Sudhanshu or Vivek, I don't remember, some of the 3 or 4 of you are meeting and talking about taking the tests that are being run now, the results that we see in comments on the PRs. We've had such an excellent improvement through use of Playwright in specific as a tool for testing Meshery UI, and how we're having it write back, the detail, all the tests and their status and the details of those tests. This output, guess what? It's Markdown. Copy, paste, submit to the Meshery docs, and it'll show up. And we can start to go to a single place. Anyway,
Yeah, so
yeah, go ahead.
So basically, like Jaren says this JSON file, like empty file kind of. So he will, like, every time this runs, so he will send the data to like in the docs directory. So like, and there is already a logic and like how tables should be formatted. So we'll just dump that from, as we get that file, we'll just format it and show in the docs. So yeah, we'll just wait for like Jaren's to upload that data through that workflow.
Okay, good. I got that, you guys. What I got from that is there's some movement and good. This test plan, thank you, Sudhanshu. You guys can provide a more detailed update in a minute. This test plan is also helpful as a standing agenda item in context of our releases. So what, are we release ready? I don't know. Are we? Or I mean, here's a tool that can help us with that. I'm going to be quiet in a moment. There's a proposal here to release our .8 version by the 15th. Okay, that's not too far away. Good. How long have we been working on this? Way too bleep long. Way too long, or for a long time, longer than we had intended. I shouldn't say bleep because it's not necessary. Anyway, for a long time, it's time to let it go. Here's the thing. What we need are individuals in the community who are ready to, who want to shoulder a responsibility, and through shouldering a responsibility, much power is granted, and many benefits are offered. But we need that for Meshery CTL, Meshery UI. The adapters have become less and less of a focus for the project because more and more of its functionality is embedded within Meshery Server. But for Meshery Server as well, the end-to-end tests that Jaren's and Ian and many others have been focused on, those largely cover Meshery Server tests. There's a release manager role that's been defined in our project. I think if you search in the docs, you'll find a kind of a description for what does it mean to be the release manager. So I'll let you guys go find it. I think one of the things that we do need a champion for, a release manager for, that they are largely a facilitator. They are largely a person, they are a gatekeeper. They are a person saying, well, according to this test plan, we are nowhere near ready. We've got red across the board. Or according to the roadmap, we are nowhere near ready. There are so many unfinished functions. They don't have to be the one performing any of the work of these things. They don't have to be the one deciding that, hey, we're going to skip a feature. Rather, they're a facilitator of ensuring that we're having that conversation, that we're driving to conclusion. So right now, Pranav, are you on the call? I thought I saw your name.
Yep. Hello. Good morning.
Oh, there. Good morning. There he is. There you are. Pranav was clearly helped organize what the heck it was we were setting out to do in this release. And it would be helpful if each of you took a look, but also helpful if there's a release manager or someone going through and saying, yeah, done, not done. And for those things that are not done, raising up the question to the community, hey, can we postpone that? Was that critical? Is that still a planned thing? Because outside of landing .8 and announcing it and having a nice blog and just a massive collection of features, because there's been a ton of work. As a matter of fact, the longer that a release train goes on, the harder it is to launch the darn thing, because you gotta go, because it just becomes a bigger, and thoughts and pieces of work that people want to do, or oh, look at this guy. There's victories to go claim, actually, for quite a few of you who've put in lots of work. I'll pick on Pranav again and say, yeah, dude, this is an awesome thing. Many projects are, you know what, let me not digress, but let me just say, I hope that this helped. And it would be really nice if we, some organization like this, I think, is helpful. But thoughts?
I think I can help with making sure that the part of my how much is it done or not would try to provide as much feedback as I can, and most likely I will try to help in the December, in the starting week of the December.
Nice. Yeah, and so thank you, Yash. Yash, you were saying one of the aspects of the project that you can help with starting in December is like the cleanup and qualification of this. Okay, yeah, that's very helpful. By the way, in my function, I'm here to support everyone else, whomever is volunteering. I'm here to help you. So it's not like you're jumping off the ship without a life raft or, life vest. Okay. Anybody else have?
I think in the roadmap, the registry and model import and export tasks are done. If you scroll up, the one that was mentioned for Uzair Bhaiya's name, bit more up. Yeah, so this models thing. So model import and export is done. We support Helm chart, manifest and everything. So I think those dynamic generations and other things are also supported now. So
yeah, great. Hey, one thing that so part of the point of trying to use like instead of using a Google Doc on this, part of a point of posting it out on using this tool is so that it's an easy reference for everyone. It's searchable, it's indexable. You can find the .7 roadmap and all that. But also anyone who's named here as a theme champion should be able to edit this and update it. And so, but we'll make sure that that's the case. We'll send an email out to developers at Meshery.io. I'll make that update. Shloke, other thoughts and comments?
Uh,
Great. All right. Hey, great. So, Ankita, do you have that spreadsheet by chance?
Yes, I added a link for it as well, and then it's there in the chat section.
Very good. All right. So in terms of readiness to be fully off of Material UI version 4, this sheet tracks that. Tell me how to interpret the sheet, if you would.
So if you scroll down a bit more, the MUI tracking begins from row number 62. Yes. So here are the list of components that need to be migrated. I have to update this part of the sheet because with the pages that I was updating and a couple of contributors that have contributed through Hacktoberfest, I haven't updated the PRs and the state of this part. But if you scroll a bit more below, you'll see the pages that I was asked to work on, the state, the PRs linked, and two of those components where there was a merge conflict and I couldn't have that up. So the first column deals with which page and its set of components have been dealt with or worked upon. The second column deals with what's the current state of this, how many of them have been merged, if there's a merge conflict that has to be resolved, and if there's a PR that's raised that needs some updates to be done or is ready for merging. So that's the state. The D column basically deals with who's the assignee, but I ended up using that as
cool. It's good.
how
I
far
get
it's done.
you need it. Good. Thank you. Yeah, I got it. Thanks. Good. You had me at line 62. Good. Hey, let's color code this sucker and get it done. We don't necessarily
It'll be done
track
this week. This part of it, like the conflicts and the open PRs.
Cool.
I'll ensure
Do
it's done.
we know? So this is all of the pages.
And
good.
Their respective components. So I just have to update which of these components are remaining from here, like after this is done.
Cool.
So this doesn't properly map the rest that are remaining that have also been updated. So I'll update the component part.
Thank you. Thank you. Next agenda item. Slow. Yeah.
yeah. So, mm, I think I'm sharing my right screen. Yeah. So the first item was updating the components. So whenever you go to playground.meshery.io, for the mode where you see all this data, if you go to the overview and then to the nodes section over here, so here only you're able to see the styles of the component, whichever this particular component belong to. So I went ahead and updated the code to have all the component data for that particular component to be inserted inside the component underscore metadata. Me and Abid had a talk that where should we place it. So one solution was to have a component, and the component definition should have the small k8s resources that we wanted, like the ID and other things. And the easiest part was to just update the component metadata with the complete component definition. So I went ahead with this. We can either switch around depending on our need. This was the first update.
Is there so Miss hey gosh, Miss Zing, Miss Xing, Miss Kyung Yi, shoot, Kung Yu, who's on the call. It would be really. I'm trying to call out. Hey, is it?
Hi.
Are you the one that's in the like in the super early time zone?
Oh yeah, I'm in Bay Area in the Pacific time.
Good morning. I think you're suffering
Morning.
along with, yeah. Ian, I think Ian, you're Pacific Coast as well, right?
Yeah, I'm Mountain Time.
Equally, Mountain Time. Okay. So you're second place for having to suffer the most. Good. Kyung, actually, can you say your first name for me? How do you pronounce it?
My
Kun-
name?
Yeah.
Kun Yue.
Shit. Okay.
It's
I would.
difficult.
Yeah. Okay. One more time, if you would.
Kun Yue.
Write it down. Kun Yue. Kun Yue. Kun Yue.
Yeah, it's correct. Or you can
Okay.
call me Scarlett.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, you could have saved everyone an expletive on the call if you just said Scarlet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm just, yeah, quit. Kun Yue. Yeah, hey, good. Hey, I wanted to take a moment. You've been involved in the project for quite a while, and
Yeah.
you've been trying to rearrange your schedule to spend time with us, and so I really appreciate that. I figured that, and you have a back end focus, you have a Golang focus, at
Yeah.
least. And the thing that Shlok just mentioned, I don't know that anyone really has any kind of a clue as to what he just said, and it's not his fault. It's just, and but it strikes me that you should, or that this is a small enough thing, and it's actually an extraordinarily important thing. Does anyone else other than Shlok and other than Abid know what Shlok is talking about? What change he's making and why? And you can totally get it wrong. I encourage you to speak up and like get it wrong, because then you'll remember. You'll know.
Um,
And not necessarily, I wasn't putting you on the spot, couldn't you? But rather, hey, just super briefly, Meshery is a multi-Kubernetes, it's such a tongue twister, Kubernetes cluster manager. It will eventually manage things outside of Kubernetes as well. As it talks to each individual Kubernetes cluster, it synchronizes the state of all of the Kubernetes resources that are inside of each cluster. And it pulls that back into Meshery server, and you can look at all those entities, all those managed resources. Here's a tabular dashboard for this, kind of like what you might find in a Lens or a headlamp or any number of the 55,000 Kubernetes dashboards that there are. This in Meshery, so Kubernetes represents resources in its own KRM format, its own Kubernetes resource model format, its own Kube API, and it describes them using an open API compliant model, that KRM, that Kubernetes resource. Meshery has its own model, very compatible intentionally, but we have Meshery models, components and relationships and so on. Now, a Meshery component is like it has like a one-to-one relationship with a managed entity. In this case, the managed entity is a Kubernetes resource, like a Kubernetes pod. To the extent that you're running a Kubernetes cluster, you have many pods deployed. Meshery discovers them all. It pulls back information about all the pods. When it does, it needs to qualify. It needs to say, I have an understanding of all these 300 different integrations of technologies, all these thousands of components. This entity that I just discovered called a Kubernetes pod, which one does it map to? Okay, that mapping and that discovery is fairly straightforward. What Shlok is enhancing is just our wrapping of the format by which we wrap metadata around the discovered Kubernetes resources, so that when you ask Meshery, you ask it this question: what entities, what resources do you have under management? What things are you aware of? You can go to this dashboard and look at it. Now, Sudhanshu and Yash, you guys should be highly confident in the fact that, like, in the upper right-hand corner, there's the Kubernetes context switcher. This dashboard, when you're looking at the namespace, when you're looking at any of the reports, we just happen to be on like the namespaces one, you should see all namespaces for all clusters that are checkmarked in that context switcher. And I guarantee you that there's a bug in there somewhere that, like, we're not honoring that selection, probably. I would be very happy to be proven wrong, though, please. And
I
then
think
you
we
can-
are. I checking earlier, like we were sending the context information in the request. Just
that, okay, Abid, you're proving me wrong already. Is that right? Before. Okay, good. I'm super happy. I'm so pumped about that. I told you I had great. Anyway, so that's what Shlok is doing. He's just saying, we've been reporting on these resources, and now he's enhancing Meshery, one of Meshery servers REST APIs, that a dashboard like this tabular dashboard that we're looking at, when the UI as a JavaScript client makes a call to Meshery server, says and asks it, what resources are you managing? And it responds with just, a wall of JSON, a wall of that. Part of that JSON includes, the color, the icon color, and it's in the specific mesh model format. Is that about it? Okay. Which API is it that you're enhancing, Shlok?
I think it's not just the API, it's as a whole. So where in the DB, while we were populating it with component metadata, just the component styles part, we are just populating it with the component definition. We could either, so this was just a test that me and Abid did. So we can move forward with the APIs that we have. So those were the existing APIs, they are just being referenced and just updated to the DB.
That's okay, wonderful. So yeah, you're doing it at a more fundamental level so that any number of other APIs can benefit. You are, is the enrichment of those managed resources, at what moment in time is the enrichment being performed?
So at the time when the data is populated, so whenever you have a Mitch sync and you have your Kubernetes running, you go to localhost 9081. I'm talking locally. So as soon as you get your K8s get registered, the Kubernetes those 5 tables get to populate, and in that scenario, it's being enhanced. So before we were just populating these tiles.
So before write to database?
Yeah.
Okay. So on receipt of a new message in the NATS topic.
Yep.
Okay. All right. All righty. Good. And if anyone is paying attention, they would point out that that's bottleneck and not necessarily a scale. That is perfect. Thank you so much for that. And in the future, that's probably an issue. Not that you aren't doing the right thing.
Yeah, we should we should just reference it, and we could do it, but this was just a test that if we are trying to use the same API, then Abid needs the backend support. So for the time being, we can do this, and then we can enhance this. So database tables, I can show you the tables. I have them here. So I can't zoom in.
Okay, can
So
I add one thing? Like, I might not have much context, but shouldn't we do the fingerprinting thing in Mesh Sync, not in Meshery server?
I think the fingerprinting
Yeah.
happens in meshing, but like the actual component is, I think, still retrieved from Meshery because the meshing doesn't have the registry, so the actual component definition is still retrieved in Meshery at ingest. But the like kind and everything, those things are fingerprinted in Meshery.
Yeah, I think that the first part of the answer to Pranav is probably yes. Like that's the way of load shedding, or that's the way of making Meshery scalable to manage more and more clusters. It's like offloading that analysis to a dedicated controller mesh sink to interrogate it and fingerprint it. And then the second part of that discussion is maybe a little longer than anyone wants to listen to. You're right. You're right. Let's discuss that. You know, like let's figure out a path to that. And these are the tables right here. So this is does everybody know that Meshery server embeds SQLite inside of it? And there's so it's an entity relationship database. There are 30 database tables. So when you talk about like the local provider, how we do tests on the local provider, or you sign in with the none provider, but here's the database that the local provider uses. And so it's aware of these concepts. So there are 5-ish tables for tracking Kubernetes resources. So all the mesh sync data that Meshery server receives from each individual Meshery operator across all the different clusters, it all gets shoved into these 5 tables. And so that data is being enriched just before it gets pushed in. And Pranav is right. Like we can hopefully figure out how to perform that enrichment elsewhere without burdening Meshery server. Wonderful. So you guys did this, and now if you use like a resources API to retrieve these entities, these resources, they are in mesh model. They are in the model format. Perfect. And did we get a chance to look at that? So you demonstrated that in the Meshery UI client inside of the dashboard. Great. And there's another popular client called Canvas. Were we able to confirm that that format works here in designer mode?
No, like right now it's like still using the old format because like of the graphical API, like it's but in the coming enhancement we are using the new one now, and it will use it now, the new APIs.
So, do you have any other updates?
Yeah, so the other update was regarding the issue where in Playground, if a component is already registered or model is already registered, the logs show a unique constraint failed update. And this is just a red herring because that model already just exists and we are trying to re-register it. So I'm still to test it. That's why this PR is on hold. And so this PR is regarding that particular update that at the DB level at the time of registry, we are ignoring the duplicate entity error and just logging it out. So I was just testing it and it was just mentioned few hours back. I think so. Just made a small PR for this. Still testing. So we can, when it's good to merge, I'll merge it and make a Meshery schemas release, and then we can use it. And then the last update was regarding the comments. So it's just a small thing that I added a lot of comments inside Rego so that it makes sense for anyone who is reading. And for those functions that don't have comments, their name is self-explanatory. So they can have, so when you'll see the function, you'll be able to understand, okay, this particular thing means this. So uh, that was all the update I had.
Thank you, Shlok. So next up, we will have Anuj's update. So do we have Anuj on the call?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
we
there.
do.
Okay. So our first update was to PR for moving the error boundary component from class based to functional based, which Kanch already covered in his PR. So this PR is like completed. So we can close this one if you agree. This one.
Yeah, the my peer does everything. Yeah. Thanks though for working, but yeah, we can close this.
Okay, I will close it. And the second issue that I was working on to increase coverage on homepage, which is E2E test. So in this PR, I have increased the test for this components for um, what? So when I did all the changes, Ian asked me to do these changes in the code, but when I did that, there was an error coming for exceeded timeout. So,
Yeah, so I think the bigger issue here that I think we need to discuss is just that we're looking for just elements to be visible on the page. I'm just not sure that that's a good use of like playwright testing. Like we should define some sort of customer experience, like page loads, buttons there, we click on it, customer had this experience, data was loaded, and that's the experience versus just test if it's there.
okay. So, yes, I also agreed on this. So, can you tell me which component should I do on the base so that I can create or test for that particular component in the home page?
So like you need to test for some features like on the dashboard we have a couple, we have the charts, we have the Kubernetes resources that Shlok was showing. So test all of those flows. Like if we are changing, like one of the flows that Lee mentioned, like he wants to get tested is like the if we switch the Kubernetes selector from there, like if you select different clusters, is the data changed and like is it reflecting out according to that? Like that's a good test case to like flow to test. Like otherwise these don't add any benefit other than wasting the build minutes.
So I think as
Okay,
next steps, maybe we can
Yeah.
we can look at the homepage and define some key flows. Let's align on that before any code's written, and then we can go from there.
okay, got it. I will do this. That you are asking. That's all for my side.
Thank you, Manoj. So next up, we have this, and yeah, this is just update. So we had disabled this add catalog.yaml workflow that ended up deleting all the catalog files due to a bad request that was not handled by the API. So Sloke has put up a temporary fix, but I just reverted it because it was handled by the server, and now I also added this stream equal to true that was required to formatting the response that we get, and then I enabled it and also ran it, and so it works fine and we are not like having all the catalog files deleted, and yeah, it's there. So just an update on this. And Sloak, like, do you have anything else to add, or we are all set, right?
Yeah, I think we are all set for this.
All right, so then we have this update from Prateek. Let me check if we have Prateek on call. Looks like we are missing Prateek. Next up, Lee, do you want to talk about remote rider Meshery database cleanup?
Oh yeah. How much time do we have? Yeah.
3 minutes.
I'll just drop a link for those that are interested to know more about the remote provider database. I think Matthew's topic is probably more important.
Yeah, Matthew, you're up next.
Okay, can you just share the link? I have some bandwidth issue here, but basically, I've seen that the Meshery CL unit test is failing since a while now. I took a quick look yesterday and didn't drill down to see from where it's come, but yes, yeah, you can go above. Yeah. And I see that the failing test is in Meshery CTL perf apply. I took a look. Those tests didn't change since years or months, so I don't know where the issue come from. I don't know if there were change made somewhere that could explain this
Yeah,
behavior
Matthew.
now.
Yeah, so the issue is coming from, you remember the place where we check for the response, and if the server response was, there was an error given in the response, we used to show, we didn't show the error before, rather we only showed that the response status. And so I updated that mishkit error to include the error response as well. So this is the case where we had an expected where it was not showing a error, and now the server is emitting the error. That's why the expected and what the response you got is changed. And this is not happening for any other commands, as all those test cases were deleted. Recently, Aditya merged one of his rename PR that consisted that particular change. So the test file got back swooped in again. So if you could just delete those test files, we are not in need, or these tests doesn't really help us. It's just if we make any change to the server, the expected and the response that the server emits will always be different.
Okay. Okay, I will follow up on this with
Okay,
you.
sure. We can talk on Slack or.
And by the way, I've
Okay.
already
Yeah.
shared the link to this run in chat, so anyone interested can take a look. So looks like we are on time, and so I think we would be wrapping up the call here. But before that, let me quickly mention the community calendar. So if you want to join the newcomers meeting that is held weekly on Thursdays, you are more than welcome to do so. You can subscribe to the community calendar to get all the meeting updates. And also whatever we discussed in this meeting, you can find that a recorded session on our YouTube channel. So you could, catch back up to any particular section or a whole meeting or any such past recordings of the calls that we are having. So yep, I've also dropped the YouTube's link in chat. Do subscribe that if, since you're in community anyway. All right, so with that, I'll see you all next Wednesday. Till then, bye.